I often get asked which foundation brushes should I use and how many brushes do I need to have in my kit. So let me take you through some of the brushes I have and I'll give you my recommendations. And hopefully this will help you make a decision on what brushes you actually need for your type of application and which ones are not a must-have. So these are all my foundation brushes. I do actually love fluffy brushes for foundation. I find that they actually give you a really nice finish and it makes the foundation look natural and flawless. And these big fluffy brushes come in different shapes as well. This one has kind of like a dome top and this one looks more like an angled brush. Both have the exact same effect. So when you actually apply it to the skin, it's good to have a little bit of the product on the back of your hand and then you apply that on your face. And you build the coverage as you need. This is my second favorite brush. It is called the Kabuki brush. And it's a very dense brush. As you can see, all the bristles have the exactly same length. And this brush does pick up a lot more product than the fluffy ones. But it's still a really nice, beautiful foundation brush. I actually quite like these ones as well, so I can buff the product into the skin really nicely. And you can also build the coverage the way you like. This one is a dual fiber brush. I actually use these ones more for cream blushes rather than foundation these days. Nothing wrong with them, I just prefer to use fluffy brushes. I find them to be amazing as a second brush, for example, if I apply the foundation and it looks a little bit too thick, or if the contour and the blush are not blended well, I'll go in with a clean dual fiber brush and really buff the product into the skin. It does help smooth the application. I don't tend to use dual fiber brushes for foundation anymore, unless I'm running out of brushes, or if I have too many clients in one day, or if I'm doing too many looks in one day and I'm running out of clean brushes. That's when I would actually pick up this one for foundation. Now this other brush is a traditional foundation brush. They have been sitting in my kit for a while now. I find them quite dense and thick. I haven't used them for foundation in actually a very long time. And to be honest, they are actually nice brushes, but they tend to leave some marks as you apply the foundation, as it can be a little bit thicker to blend everything in. And as I said before, my preference is to use fluffy brushes for foundation. And then here we have some beauty blenders. I absolutely love using beauty blenders. They give you the most flawless finish. The only downside for me as a makeup artist is the hygiene side of it. To sanitize a beauty blender between clients is basically impossible until you get home and then you can wash and sanitize them properly. Because I can't really sanitize them between clients, I tend to use brushes instead, as I can use a brush cleaner to sanitize them between clients if I needed. I would only use beauty blenders on my recurring clients, so each one of them will have their own beauty blender with their own little case, and then I label them so I know which sponge belongs to which client. Beauty blenders would definitely be my preferred method of application if it wasn't for the challenge of keeping them sanitized. If you are going to use a beauty blender, you really need to commit to keep them clean because the sponges tend to grow a lot of bacteria and mold inside of them. You need to wash and let them dry properly. And what I also like to do is to dip them in rubbing alcohol to kill all the bacteria that might be still sitting inside them. It is a little bit more labor intensive, but I can guarantee it does give you a really beautiful finish. These are some of my older face brushes. This is a big powder brush. I use these brushes to finish the makeup look, or if I want to apply a little bit more bronzer or a bit of blush. I would also use this brush for blushes. I also look for big fluffy brushes for powders to spread the product evenly on the skin, remembering to start with a minimum amount of product and build up as you need. I wouldn't really use a small brush to apply powder blush or bronzer because it can get concentrated in one spot and make it look really patchy, and you really want your application to look even. For translucent powders, I actually use a small fluffy brush, so you can actually apply the product exactly where it needs to be. Most looks, I only use translucent powder, only on the oilier parts of the face, and that's depending on the skin type. Sometimes I just powder a little bit under the eyes, around the nose area. It is best to do that with a small brush like this, so you can actually target the area that actually needs to be powder, and you don't want the powder to go on a whole face if the whole face doesn't need to be powder. Angled brushes like these are used to apply contour, sometimes to apply blush, depending on the face shape or the look I'm going for. I find them really nice to work with, and they are tapered at the end, which actually helps shaping the face. So angled fluffy brushes, good for contour and blushes. This brush here I use for highlighters. This is a fan brush, and what it does, it places the highlighter really lightly on the skin. Just place the product on the end of the brush here, and that will give you a really nice even finish. And it won't look too heavy on the skin as well. It will give you a really nice and natural highlight to the skin. From there, we're going to move to concealers. So this is the only concealer brush I actually use. I don't even think I have another type of concealer brush in my kit. In some occasions, I might use my finger to dab the product on the skin. However, I tend to go for small fluffy brushes, and this is definitely my favorite. I haven't actually found another brush that gives you such a flawless finish to the under eye area. It gives a really nice and natural finish to the skin. If you really need, you can also use your fingers to apply concealer. Try using one of those two fingers if you need, as we tend to have less pressure on them. If you use your index finger, you get a heavier coverage and not so smooth finish as well, because we tend to have more pressure on that finger. You will be depositing more product on the skin, so best is to use less pressure for a smoother application. So have a think about what is the type of makeup you usually go for, what styles do you like, how much time you have to put your makeup on in the morning, and then make a decision what brushes suit you and what brushes suit your type of application. Just have a think about that before going and buying a set of 20 brushes, when you might actually end up using only 5 of them. These are some of my eye brushes. You obviously don't need to have all of them. It all depends on the type of makeup you usually go for. I'm going to go through and explain how we use them and why do you need them. So a fluffy blending brush is used for blending. I will show you. I was just doing a bit of testing here before. If we use this brush to pick up any eyeshadow, let's go for the darker shade here. So you can see how the pigment doesn't seem to be as strong on this brush. So you get a little bit of the eyeshadow and then you apply it to your skin, and it gives you a really nice and soft finish. Now, we use fluffy brushes mostly to blend the eyeshadow out. So if you want to have a nice smooth finish to the look, that's when you'll be using a fluffy brush, purely to blend everything out. This is also known as a blending brush, as it gives you the illusion that the eyeshadow is actually fading into the skin. And your eyeshadow won't look stripy when you're using this brush. Now, when we switch to a dense brush like this one, that's exactly what you're gonna get. Flat brushes like this one I use where I want to be depositing a lot more color. You can see how much stronger the eyeshadow looks. On this brush, we want to deposit this color quite strongly on the skin. You can see the difference. That's when you're actually going to use a flat brush, where you want to add the intensity of color and make it stronger. I would use this on the eyelid, and then I would use a fluffy blending brush on the crease of the eye just to smooth everything out. I will show you here how we're actually going to use a fluffy brush to blend everything out. See how it starts to soften that whole look? And that's why I recommend having at least one of each in your makeup kit, because that's going to give you more flexibility when you're trying to create a beautiful makeup. The flat brush is going to deposit more color, and the fluffy brush is going to blend everything out. Small angled brushes are my favorite for eyeliners and eyebrows. For hygiene reasons, I don't actually use pen liners because I can't actually sterilize them between clients, so I prefer to use gel liners, where I can simply scrape the product off and place it on my pen or my palette, and then I can get the angle brush to draw the eyeliner or the hair strokes on the eyebrow. If you're not very familiar with eyeliner, or it's not something you actually would include in your makeup application, there is no need to have a brush like this. If you want to try to do your eyeliner, I recommend getting one of those pen liners first, because it's easy to carry around and it's easy for you to use. It doesn't take much space and it doesn't require constant cleaning. Once you learn how to do your eyeliner well, then you can move on to gel eyeliners. You don't need to start by having a million brushes in your kit. This little short dense one I use more for detail, and same with this pointy brush. This small pointy brush I use to apply highlighter in the inner corner of the eye, or if you want to go under the eye with some eyeshadow. Similar with this one here. This is actually similar to what you can create by using the tip of this flat brush. As you can see, they are very similar, flat and dense brushes. They do very similar jobs. It just depends on how big the flat brush is, so you can actually use them to apply detail under the eye. I'll only push the color close to the lash line. Not worth buying the smaller brush specifically for that, as you can achieve very similar effect just by using the tip of a large flat brush. It's all about learning how to use the tools you have. You don't need to buy all the brushes available in the market that promise that you can do amazing makeup if you don't know how to use them. This more pointy one is not something you would definitely need in your kit unless your makeup skills are intermediate or advanced. Some other tools you might need in your kit as well are tweezers, You would need them to pluck some hairs that might be out of the way or to apply false lashes. You would also need lash glue if you're applying false lashes. I like the dual lash glue because I never really had any client having any reactions to it. And I do prefer large tweezers to apply false lashes as they do not have any sharp ends. And it also has a longer body. Another thing I recommend having is a lash curler. They can be a little bit tricky to work with because they come in one single shape and everyone has a different eye shape. Obviously, if you want to have nice curved lashes because your lashes look a little bit flat, this is a really good tool for you to have handy. You can use them every day prior to applying mascara. Just remember to be gentle with your lashes. I also recommend having a nice sharpener because we tend to use lots of pencil products, but you can get something nice and cheap for this as long as it works well. But always remember you also need to sanitize your sharpener as well. How I like to sanitize my sharpener is by using a cotton bud and rubbing alcohol. So you just need to spray that into the sharpener and then you use a cotton bud to clean everything inside and out properly. So just a little bit of spray of the rubbing alcohol, put your cotton bud inside, just clean everything that's in there. There might be leftover products from another day. And just make sure you try to clean that between uses because bacteria can actually grow in the leftover product that you leave in your sharpener. Especially because the pencils are for the lips and for the eyes, so there will be bacteria building on those sharpeners as well. So just make sure you actually sanitize all your tools and make sure everything is nice and clean before your next use. Something else I like to have is rubbing alcohol. This one is isocol. So this is a really good way to sterilize pretty much everything. Your sharpener, scissors, tweezers, any other products as well. I do have a special spray to clean powder products. I will talk about it in another series. This is the Beauty So Clean spray sanitizer. But if you don't have that, you can also use the isopropyl alcohol or the rubbing alcohol if you find that suitable. It does clean your eyeshadows, but it can dehydrate them over time. Something else that's definitely worth talking about is brush cleaners. I do have two brush cleaners I usually carry in my kit. One is a leave-in brush cleaner that I can use on set between clients. It dries out and it has a little bit of alcohol in it, so I don't actually need to rinse that after using. It is quite expensive, but it's definitely worth the money. Quite hard to find here in Australia. You have to buy it from a makeup supplier, but it's definitely the best makeup cleaner that I had so far. The other option here is by Style Pro. It is a really nice brush cleaner as well. It does leave a lot of residue, so you have to rinse after using it, but it's absolutely amazing for brushes, especially the ones you use creams or liquids, the ones that you apply a foundation, for example, or even the brushes that you use to apply lipstick as well. This gets rid of absolutely everything. It's really nice, quite expensive as well, but definitely worth having something like that in your kit, just to make sure your brushes are always nice and clean and sanitized. You will get rid of all the excess makeup that builds up over time. You can also use the rubbing alcohol to sterilize the brushes if you like. I wouldn't use just that to clean them because it doesn't take the stains out, but it is a good product to have in your makeup kit as well to help sanitize and sterilize everything.